everything's always going to go up. You're never going to acquire a customer for less money tomorrow than you were a year ago, right? So that number's always going to keep climbing. Meanwhile, your customer lifestyle in regards to how much money they bring in their household will remain somewhat the same. Your product costs will go up, right? So you have acquisition costs and product costs that are always guaranteed to go up, right? 5, 10, 15 years from now, it's going to be insane. Meanwhile, the person you're selling to, they're not going to see the same graph.
I think there's a little bit too much of a knee-jerk reaction in an emotional way, right? They're not thinking logically, they're thinking at an emotional level. They're knee-jerking reaction to what's going on up and down, whatever maybe the market crashes, and they're making decisions around personnel or, marketing or business decisions,
pricing.
And they're too dramatic when you should be at a position, and this comes down to back to like good business resilience, right? If you have a good business, you should have enough cash flow and enough of a war chest sitting around where you're not having to put a business decision that moment in order to protect and save yourself. If you're making decisions at that exact moment, there's probably a bigger problem within your business.
Yeah. Remember when I called Jimmy Daddy last time we were in Miami?
Yes, I lost it fully.
That was a good
It even messed you up. You were like,
yeah, it took me a second to register because I'm pretty good at ignoring Brian's little slings,
but
and
that
then
was
it just got me at the end.
Yeah. But I was telling them on my phone, I have my phone call me daddy. But the issue is when I go to purchase something and I double click and I use Apple Pay to pay for a purchase online, my info will get automatically fulfilled. You have a fly? Yeah. I see it. Oh, my. Who saw that?
I think you got it.
I play Division 3 football.
I don't think you got it.
Division 3 football. I play.
That means
I don't think you got
that
it.
means
Yeah.
That means you get flies
I'm sorry,
to Division 3
didn't get it.
football.
Did you play college? Were you an athlete in college? Probably not. Well, we can go on in the episode.
All right.
Let's do this.
You saw how quick that was, right?
Let's talk economic
very slow.
downturn strategies for resilience in 3, 2, 1.
Welcome to the Awesome Pod, where we talk a lot. E-com is the path that we walk a lot. From 4 point of views when we're talking shop. Amir from the agency and Jimmy from SAS. John has an Android, but give him a pass. Cause he's an operator building brands like a carpenter. And that's Brian, he is the marketer. Like I said, this the Awesome Pod, where we talk a lot. E-com is the path that we walk a lot. From 4 point of views when we're talking shop.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Awesome Pod, a show about perspective from the eyes of an agency, SaaS, operator, marketer focused on e-commerce, D2C, and retail. All right, quick introductions going around the room. We've got Mr. John Roman, the Android-loving survival king. What's
going
up,
on?
dude?
Good to be here,
Can
man.
we airdrop you?
Apparently not. It
Yeah, I know, it's
airdrop
sad.
to him and
He
then
was like,
Slack
can
to
you
me.
send me that? They're like, I don't know, the low-quality resolution that will be sent forward to you.
No, to be fair, it would have been okay with RCS.
And then he asked RCS. No one knows what RCS
No one even
is.
knows what that means. It sounds like a car Toyota.
I mean, this guy's on iOS 12
You're the only
still.
one that doesn't have RCS here.
No, it's not true.
Yes, Jimmy and I RCS.
Yes, we do RCS.
Amir just sent me the video, perfect quality.
Sounds like a CRV.
Honda
Like a
CRV.
Honda? We've got Amir Grosadic, Prince of Bosnia, Mayor of Motivation. I like that better.
I
than Chicago.
love Mayor
Yeah.
Motivation.
Yeah, he's a motivating guy, and today
Yeah.
he's going to motivate us with a book. Later
I like
on.
that.
You
like
you
that?
are motivating.
No,
Am I?
We came here with nothing.
I give your.
Now we got something. Is that
You know,
is that sort of
It's
spot
the
on?
worst
Vegas
accent ever.
was so much better. So much better.
Now that he's back, 3 episodes in a row. That's pretty wild. All right, then we got Brian McDonald. Now you've been added with
Division 3 college athlete.
Division 3 college guy,
Yeah, sure
king
did.
of meats, self-proclaimed funniest dude on LinkedIn.
That's right.
And you ready? Are you talking resilience and strategies around resilience? And my name is Jimmy Kim. I'm the moderator, the brain, the man, and the people, and the email dude here today. And if you're listening to this pod and you want to hear funny hot takes and angry Amer, please check us out at awesomepod.com and subscribe to our newsletter. And of course, we have Commerce Roundtable San Diego. I'm going to start talking about it every pod, September 22nd, 23rd, 600 D2C, mid-market, e-commerce, great food, amazing location, a lot of people. These people will be here too. These 3 and myself will be at the show. We'll probably be doing some kind of live pod episode there too, and some funny takes there that we'll be doing. So with that, I want to jump into this pod because I think that this is really timely right now, just because there's a lot of things going on in this world. economics of the world. You know, the word recession has been thrown around for so long, for 14 years. You know what's funny? I always find, guys, is like, nobody wants to. There's always the doom and gloom people in this world. And for the last 14 years, they've been wrong. And finally, they're getting it. And you know what they always say? I told you. I'm like, well, what goes up must always come down.
And it's always cyclical. It's
going to happen. Actually, we're 4 years late to what it's supposed to be cyclical-wise, right?
Yeah, you're talking 10 years.
And I think there's a lot of corrections going on. There's things like tariffs and all this stuff that's happening in this market. And honestly, all it is, well, the weak will fall and the strong will survive, right? Like we've seen this over and over again. I lived through the 2008 recession. I lived through a little bit of the 2000 recession, right? I've seen it all, and I think this one, if it is, it's pretty light compared to some of the ones that we've seen in the past. You know, the tariffs, yeah, I get it. Like we may see prices, and depending on what happens, because it's an everyday changing thing, right? Like what happened yesterday to today, we are now at a potentially different structure with that thing. And what happens when this pod comes out to when we are talking about it, we don't know what that number is going to be. It could be all gone and fixed for all we know.
Yeah, I don't know. It depends on how you're measuring this one being light compared to others. I think there's variables that are different with this one, with where inflation is at, where cost of living is at. I think it's a little bit of a trickier one.
It is trickier.
As of right now, yeah, but I mean, it could go south fast and be much, much worse.
And I think there's a big difference between a free market driven recession and adjustment and a policy and regulation driven adjustment. There are two big differences.
Well, there's a lot of ways we can look at this, but the reality is we are not big enough to control any of this stuff. And what we need to focus on is how we stay resilient in our business and how we survive through this, how we come out stronger, how we come better. Before we deep dive, let's start with the simple question. Like, when you hear economic downturn, what's the first thing that starts running through your mind? Brian, I'm going to start with you. What one's in your mind as a marketer as you hear those terms and people talking about it in the news, and what do you start thinking about for work and business?
Yeah, so I think I think it was you that messaged in Slack like a week or so ago. You're like, how's Omas doing with everything? Like, I think we're in a unique position because when you're in a consumable product, especially like a healthy consumable product for your animal, it's a lot easier to survive swings in economic climate, because it's harder to remove your animal, believe it or not, from something that they love to eat every single day than it is humans, right? Because humans, what we ate today is different than tomorrow, but for your animals, they eat the same thing every single day. So, I came from the gun and ammo industry, another fortunate industry where honestly, economic downfall means economic upturn for our business back then. And then I'm in one now where, they've been around, like I said, for forever, and nothing's ever changed because it's very hard to remove your pet from what they consume. It's a lot easier to do that for the human side of it, right? So the human direct-to-consumer brands, right, your prepared meals and all that stuff, they're going to be struggling big time in any sort of economic downfall, because it's like, wait, I'm spending $600 a month getting meals delivered to my door. Like, we'll just go to the grocery store. You can't really do that for your
You think
animal.
people are likely to cut out their own stuff before their pets?
Yeah, not even cut out their own stuff from their pets, but they're more likely to adjust their intake of meals for themselves. And instead of getting it from Henry, they'll get it from Peter or Paul or go to the store. It's easier for humans because we eat different things every day. Humans aren't as regimented in regards to 1 a.m. feeding, 1 p.m. feeding, have a cup of this in the morning, a cup of this at night. As humans, we eat 4,000 different things every single year, right?
And let's be honest, people love their pets more than their kids.
Yeah. So it's we're in a great situation in regards to that, but in regards to the procurement process and rise of cost of goods, yes, that plays in effect with what's currently happening with tariffs, and then also with just people raising their prices in the U.S.
And I think part of this is also you run a premium brand, right? And
Yeah.
being a premium brand has premium buyers, and premium buyers, though it's going to affect them, let's be honest, they're not getting affected the same way that you may see in a
It has to go much more south for it to start.
Yes, correct.
Like we're not feeling the same pain in the same way.
Yeah.
What about you, John? What do you think about when you start hearing economic downturn? Like, what's the first thing that comes to mind when you're running a business?
Pop up, it's Alia, driving down the lane. From Nike to Plunge, they're running the game. 900 brands, yeah, they know the name. Support so fire, puts others to shame. Real A/B tests with insights to match. Fast load times like a lightning patch. Book a demo now and don't miss the deal. Get 30 days free and a 20% steal. Big shout out to Alia, an app that is revolutionizing how brands turn website visitors into loyal customers. With some of the highest performing pop-ups in e-com, Alia is helping brands ditch traditional web forms and double down on education, personalization, and conversion. We highly recommend you check out Alia at alialearn.com today and let them know Awesome sent you.
I think the first thing that comes to mind is ensuring that we have a roadmap and a game plan to weather the potential storm, right? So, we went through an exercise of what it looks like, and we did this about 3 years ago. If revenue drops to this or CAC goes to this, like these are the actions, and it's a very process-driven exercise that we did. Probably time to revisit it. We looked at it actually last week. For some reason it came up, and we looked at it and was like, oh, well, we've hired this new person, and now we're, our TikTok shop and our whatnot revenue is becoming a much significantly larger part of the revenue. So we probably need to readjust it. I think just and calibrate. I think just making sure you have an actual plan, because if the worse it gets, the harder it is going to be to acquire new customers. The harder it's going to be to retain your existing, even if you have a product like yours, Brian. I think, if things get really bad, you still have to have a game plan, because eventually, yes, they're going to cut out the human $600 a month. But at some point, they might also have to cut out the premium food for their...
That's great. Yeah, it's a great point.
Yeah.
Did you, I know like even when the growth was great, you guys didn't go crazy on hiring or any of that stuff in the past. As we're looking to the future, do you guys making any adjustments within BattleBox today on how you're thinking about the future? Like, are you guys making any proactive decisions?
Yeah, so we, the only thing we proactively have done is we've actually cut our marketing budget, and I use the word cut loosely. We're sticking to our marketing budget. We've always, for many years, ran it about marketing, which includes the lion's share of that is digital ad dollars, is typically 12%. For much of last year, probably ran on average maybe 16, 17%, just because, as Brian and I have both gone on for long periods of time about the future of subscription, it's become more and more difficult to get those customers. So we're sticking to 12% now, and I don't want to say we're on a full-blown focus on EBITDA, but there's now some minimum expectations of how much we have to have, and a lot of that is for, the war chest, if you will, being able to weather, storm.
What about you, Mayor? Running an agency, we're a service-based business, right? Obviously, there's going to be, and we'll talk about this later about what clients are doing, but like, what comes to your head the moment that you start realizing there's a potential downturn? How are you being proactive in this situation?
I kind of look at it from a macro and a micro standpoint. So when people talk about recession, to your point, everyone's like, oh, you're eventually right about a recession. But even during a recession, it doesn't mean the spending is going to stop, especially in America, because we are a very debt-driven economy, unfortunately, or fortunately, however you want to look at it. So the first thing I look at is consumer sentiment. That's kind of my ballpark. So like, for example, in March, it was the first time or the lowest consumer sentiment in 60 years. That to me is a little bit more of a worry, because even when we went through the previous recessions, we were still to a degree spending, whether it was like, for example, with bailing the auto industry out and with the incentives to purchase vehicles or whatever else might have been the case. So that to me, like even like this is when it really triggered me. I was like, okay, we've been talking about it, but now if this doesn't turn around, this could become a recession when it comes to purchase and purchase power. And that's kind of what I look at it. Then from the second standpoint, I like to say, because we do use a lot of offshore talent, I want to say we're recession proof, but we are recession flexible. And this is what I mean. During kind of the good years, we try to focus on profitability, project to project, account to account, make sure everything is there, really maximizing our profitability. I think like any other business, when we enter lower consumer sentimentism scores, what I like to look at is how do I focus on having positive margin on my payroll and operational cost. So I have fixed costs every single month, and the goal is what can I do, one, to alleviate expenses from my clients and help them get through this as well, because we got to be a partner and do good and the bad times. And how do I maintain that profitability month to month on payroll and operations, and not just per account and project based. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, so let me follow up on that, because I think that's really interesting, because I have a question around the observations that you're seeing on your client level, right?
Yeah.
Are you seeing them come to you talking about slashing budgets towards you, marketing? Like, how has that been? Like, are you starting to feel it?
John and I had a conversation about this the other day. He needed to decrease budget for
one of our other assets that we have.
So it could be someone that has you on retainer for 40 hours a week or 40 hours a month going to 30 or 20 hours a month sort of situation.
Some will pause everything.
Or pause, yeah.
So no secret, Perella does dev for everything we have, all of our assets.
Yeah.
And yeah, we have one of our smaller brands that we acquired a couple years ago. We're going through that scenario and planning, and we're taking a hard look at OpEx, and that brand uses. But it was like, man, like, is it a good use of money right now? Like, or do we just accept the site for what it is right now, and we're just not going to make any improvements that need development? So we didn't even take hours down. We eliminated the dev services completely.
Gotcha.
So now why I asked that is that you're feeling that, and does that make you make decisions around the business? Is that making any proactive changes for you inside the business, knowing that, hey, at any time, let's just say if everything takes a really big really bad dive, like this tariff stuff that was been happening, like you might lose 50% of those customers.
Very much easily. And we've been having a lot of conversation with merchants of all sizes that we work with. They don't know what 6 months from now is going to look like. If, for example, if tariffs stay in place, they're not sure if they'll be able to sustain it. We have merchants who are saying, like, look, we are shifting production facilities. We're going from China to Vietnam. Don't worry about it. Everything will be fine. It's a mixture. Now, I'll take, for example.
But I'm saying, are you guys being proactive? Like Perella, I'm talking about. What are you doing to be proactive with your business?
Oh, we're planning for that. So, for example, we had a leadership meeting this week, and we went over finances. As you guys know, I like to stack as much cash as possible for these scenarios.
Huff and puff slot machines.
And so one of the things we looked at is like, okay, where do our sales need to be a month from now before we start making decisions? So I kind of like to go to alert levels. Now we're like cautious. Yeah. And we're not prematurely reacting, but I've have it for next month, May 15th. We're going to look at the landscape and figure out what do we need to move pieces around. Now, one of the things that in preparation of this we've been doing and creating a model, and we're probably going to launch in the next couple of months, is we're going to create a lower level agency that is going to take on a lot of smaller clients, or if clients do not want premium services and white glove services, where we can still be there and support them. So there's like these like pieces that we're moving around that can, one, retain merchants on lower levels.
Like almost like a break fix.
Exactly. Yeah.
Almost like that before we saw it after you. The company, I'm not going to name them, but they're called Rebel out of Connecticut, and they're horrible. But
I'm not going to name them. Their name is Rebel. This is the street address.
But when people like mention like, oh, you're going to like go after some smaller people, that guy was running at 12 million ARR, and he was only capturing New England small businesses like restaurants. And he was making $12 million a year.
For him.
So my model, I want it to be different.
There's so much money out there.
Is we get a lot of brands that come to us, and we launch a website. We do 6 months of retainer, and they're like, "Hey, Amir, for next 6 months, we're focusing on different things. Can we lower the retainer to 5 to 10 hours?" It's like, well, I'm not set up currently from an administrative standpoint to support that type of thing. We wouldn't make money on it. So
'Cause you have to allocate the hours. It just doesn't make
yeah.
sense.
So I want to create a different system for them. So what's going to happen is there's going to be two agencies. You downgrade to the other one, more like a ticketing platform.
Yeah.
And then when you get a big project or you need an influx, we put you back to Perella to have a white gloved
But the other one will
service.
just utilize your path ticketing system and
Exactly. So
makes sense.
Yeah.
You're
And the-
eliminating headcount around like account management, basically.
Exactly, yeah. So it's going to be like one person instead of, for example, right now we keep one person to 6 to 8 accounts, like an account manager, between projects and retainers. That might be 1 to 20 because it's much smaller, much more. A lot of merchants come to us, they want these 5 to 10 hours. They're just, Amir, like, we love your team. We know when something goes down and we need help, you guys are going to be there.
want you on it,
And
yeah.
we don't want to look for anybody else. So like, I don't want to lose those people because we don't have a system set up. I want to react to the market. And here's a big thing. I get 100 of these guys over the next 2 years.
I was going to say that's more scalable than your white glove Perella service.
It is.
My
Yeah.
ass.
It is.
Yeah.
But it becomes a marketing arm of the company because they're going to need an integration eventually. They're going
it's
to
just
need
funnel
a redesign.
funnel
That's all
for
it is.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're funneling Perella at the same time scaling that side of it. You're
Jimmy's
doing,
like, this is perfect.
Jimmy's like, all right, dude, here we go.
The Jimmy Kim playbook.
I like
Yeah,
that.
I hope that answers the question.
Yes,
But
Yeah,
it
no,
sou-
that's
it sounds
great answer.
very nice the way that you're building that.
Go. Yo, listen up, let me put you on game. OmniSend's got the tools and everything that they claim. Email, SMS, yes, all in one. E-com brands love it cause it gets work done. Yeah, 125K worldwide. Reviews so high, got them beaming with pride. And their stars are 4.8, no joke. Shopify bags, so you know it's dope. Automation so slick, like a self-driving whip. Bring them back with a click, never losing the grip. Easy migration, yeah, that's no stress. Support so strong, got me feeling real blessed. No sneaky fees, no surprise in sight. Ain't calling it alignment just to raise the price. So if growth is the goal and sales on your mind, OmniSend's got the tools, now go get what's mine. Hit OmniSend.com today and watch your brand take off, okay? Oh yeah, and tell them Awesome sent you.
All right. Continuing on, I want to go to Brian a little bit. You know, every downturn also has upside.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And obviously there's more opportunity. People are spending less money. Like, how are you looking at this in the market? Like, is there opportunity you're seeing in this market today?
Yeah, for sure. I think like now, granted, like we're not heavily involved in paid right now, but just like looking at it from seeing the landscape, just being in the industry for such a long time, what I don't think like people really understand from the D2C side of it is your CPMs and your everything's always going to go up. You're never going to acquire a customer for less money tomorrow than you were a year ago, right? So that number's always going to keep climbing. Meanwhile, your customer lifestyle in regards to how much money they bring in their household will remain somewhat the same. Your product costs will go up, right? So you have acquisition costs and product costs that are always guaranteed to go up, right? 5, 10, 15 years from now, it's going to be insane. Meanwhile, the person you're selling to, they're not going to see the same graph. So what I'm noticing is that there's such a huge opportunity that makes this slow growth organic plan at Omas in terms of like customer acquisition so much more powerful, because we're like, when I was down at Global, when I had a ditch and head out of Vegas, I was walking around and people were coming up to me like Adam was like, I can't be around you anymore. It was that crazy. And the pet industry is huge, right? We're talking about a massive industry. And it was either the LinkedIn people that follow me on LinkedIn or I love your guys' TikTok and Instagram. Oh my God, can I get a pic? We had people asking to take a selfie with me.
And Adam
right?
was like, I can't. deal with
Meanwhile, the guy that I sent you guys yesterday that created Woof, right? They're a huge brand. They just came into market a couple years ago, $40 million brand. They're all over
this.
the
Is that
place.
the guy that just wears the robe?
No, that's a cat guy. But we're friends with a bunch of huge brands. No one even recognized their brand or them in regards to, oh my gosh.
Oh, wow.
Once you have that, what we're building is like, what I tell Nina is every 1,000 followers we get is another brand gaining 100,000. So I'm willing, and I say this all the time to her, to like really focus on like the strategy that I set in place is every person that we acquire is like becomes a part of our brand, and they're not just a follower of the brand. And there's such a huge opportunity right now in the direct to consumer space of it's much harder to also churn during economic hard times when you fall in love and become a part of that brand family. It's a lot easier to churn and ditch and cut costs when you're like, oh, whatever, I'm going to cut BattleBox because I don't really like them, or cut Prelic. Once you fall in love with them, it's so much harder.
No, that's a good explanation. And that actually leads me to John right now, because I think what's really interesting is that as we're looking in this economic downturn or potential economic downturn, right, people tend to shift to the essentials, right?
Yep.
I mean, you guys can all agree on that. So at this point, you are relying on brand loyalty for people to not cut you out of their budget ultimately, right? Have you guys thought about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're constantly self-aware of where we fall for the majority of people on the need-want scale, right? I wish we were farther to the need.
Yeah, you're a vitamin, not a drug.
Yeah, but that's a great analogy. But we are a vitamin, right? And that's good.
You bring happiness.
Yeah,
but you're not necessary to have happiness.
Right, but and that's not 100% across the board. There's customers that would argue against that and be like,
Of course. Those are your most loyalists. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But no, we're very self-aware about it, and we've looked at ways how do we broaden, how do we get closer on the need side. I think that's a lot of the efforts we do of bringing the additional value in the membership that's maybe outside of just outdoor or preparedness. For the Battle Vault, for example, like we have a policy on the Battle Vault for the team. Like there's no bad ideas. Like you find a hookup on, we offer a free trial for pet insurance on there.
Like a CPA affiliate deal?
We're not taking anything.
Oh.
We said anything you want to give us, make it a better deal. And it's just pure value add to them. You find a good deal on toilet paper. Like, let's bring that in. Like, we want to bring additional value.
Have you guys thought about getting into a little bit of affiliate marketing at all? I feel like there's a lot of partnership brand equity.
So there's a lot that offer it. That's normally how they lead.
Yeah.
We pretty regularly, and by pretty regularly, every single time, we flip the script on them and say, that's cool, you want to give us that, but add that to make it even a better offer, because we know the dollars in retention are going to outweigh a affiliate commission.
Okay. It's interesting. I mean, I don't know what the commission levels out there are, but probably not that great.
It's a pretty straightforward. Just keep the customer longer, and that's better.
That's good. I mean, it sounds like you're thinking about loyalty and creating brand resilience with this, because you know that you have to fight for it ultimately, and you got to keep the value up there. And as you said, look, there's people who are going to love your brand, but there's also people who are going to make the decision to cut it, and that's just part of a business, right? You guys always have to deal with that, but as long as you're being smart about it and you're being upfront about it, that's the most important. You can't be oblivious to this stuff.
Yeah.
All right. I want to go into some stories, because before we go into the next step, because I want to go to stories and then I want to talk about actual advice around things that people should be thinking about. But before we get to that, I want to share some stories, and I've asked you guys to kind of talk about some cautionary tales about brands that cut too deep and they damage their growth of the future, because I thought this would set the stage really well for us. It's like, hey, well, who do you have that you said went and said, oh my God, a recession's coming, panicked, did too much, and then never recovered from it? I'll start with you, Amer. You've been quiet down there. Tell me about a story.
So I'm going to talk about a story about Netflix, one on the kind of the front end and one on the back end. So I don't know how much you guys know.
I have Netflix.
Yeah, I don't understand. The whole idea was that it was never recovered. Netflix has definitely recovered.
Well, not quite. So they're just front end and back end to it. So the front end to it is Netflix actually had positioned themselves to be acquired by Blockbuster. They had a meeting. It was supposed to be a several $1 million acquisition, and Blockbuster laughed them out of the room, basically. You guys are crazy with this idea. It's never going to work. And
this was just DVD to the mail.
Yeah.
Eliminating the need to go.
Okay. But they did talk to them about the streaming piece and everything else. And I did some research, and one of the things that was interesting is that the whole pitch with the DVDs and even like streaming later on, Netflix was making a correlation, which makes sense. Like, look, people stream short videos already, short form at that time with YouTube and everything else. People were downloading music on the Napsters of the world and everything like that. The next thing was movies. But Netflix had to time it right with the technology to support that type of streaming as well. So, but then as Netflix matured, what ended up happening is they wanted to split off another company. So they had the mailing service and they had the streaming service. So at one point, it was together, and it was $7.99, I believe, for both services at once. And then they ended up spinning up a company called Quickster. And Quickster was supposed to be the streaming service. And then you still had Netflix that had the DVD service. Well, what they did overnight, they hiked the price up, I believe it was by 60%, by charging $7.99 for both. And there was a huge outrage from...
I don't remember this.
I don't remember any of this either.
Oh, you don't remember? It happened for 1 year. It grew and died really, really fast.
I guess I just had Netflix DVDs then, and I hadn't embraced the streaming side yet.
Yeah.
So I didn't know.
Yeah, you probably just had cable. You had DirecTV. You
Yeah,
said.
and I still had
cable. And you
Netflix
had
DVDs.
DVR. You just DVR
so I didn't
everything.
think about
yeah.
Quickster.
So they lost in Q3 of the year. I forgot what year it was, but 800,000 subscribers. Their stock plummeted. Everything went down. So they actually ended up shutting out Quickster, bringing everything under Netflix. Obviously, it was the right decision, and reconciliating everything under one.
I
Interesting.
didn't know this happened. This is
So
wild.
Quickster no longer exists.
No longer exists. I think it was...
But then now they also don't have the DVD streaming service, and recently Redbox killed theirs, so like that's done.
Yeah.
And what they even did is like people had 2 logins, 2 bills, 2 everything. So it was even like fully treated as 2 separate companies.
I didn't. I guess I just had Netflix, the DVD service during all this.
Did you have Quickster?
Did not have Quickster.
I don't know where he made it. I think he made the story up.
100%.
I feel like this is Mandela effect.
Yeah, are you
like
Mandela affecting us with some old
just
story?
made up a fake story?
Yeah, making up a fake
Trolling
story.
us?
It's like no one's going to
Did
know.
Winnie the Pooh really have a hat?
It's what?
No, I'm just kidding. All right. Let's go to let's go to John with J. Crew. Let's talk about this.
Okay, so back to your question before we went through Amir's made up story about Quickster.
Amir's.
America's.
Yeah, so you asked the question about those brands that are like, stop spending, no marketing, no product, everything must go, like we must get our prices down. J. Crew did that. So in the 2008 recession, they slashed their marketing and product budgets like significantly, and they did it for several years in a row. Just all they were doing was trying to conserve cash and ride out the recession. But the short-term savings came at the cost of the brand, right? So the brand was very relevant pre-recession, and they literally just lost their
earth. Yeah.
Yeah, the customer loyalty was gone. There was obviously no more growth, and it started this death spiral that when the recession went away and things were looking good again, it was just, you couldn't fix the trajectory of death.
Sure.
Like the plane was crashing. So by 2020 came along, and all of a sudden people were stuck in their homes and they can't go to the mall. Like they were already on life support. Now, I guess since they've restructured, someone else bought them. It's just not the same. Like
No, I don't even know where
J. Crew was a
stores.
brand in the late 2000s.
Yeah, there was a lot of brands that disappeared over the last 20 years.
Yeah, and COVID was just the final blow. It's not like COVID really killed them.
So this is where they overcorrected ultimately. Took too drastic of a measure.
Yeah, they cut
They
too
forgot
much.
what brand equity really was, and they lost their loyalty too behind that, because people might have not been spending, but they were still spending. They were still buying.
And killing the product cost too, right? So the quality of the goods were not as good.
Got it.
And that just ultimately will kill any brand loyalty at that point.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Brian,
I got a good one.
you got a good one?
Yep. So this is relating back to, I'm going to actually talk about Omas Pride and how it was set up before the age of the internet, where Omas Pride used to be Miller Farms, which was a human food manufacturer and distribution company. Then they started making pet food. We also owned Miller's Transportation, which grew to be one of the largest transportation companies in New England at the time. Okay. Now, during this, after 2008, they still had it, sold it in order to support and generate cash to keep Miller's Farms food and then the new growing Omas pet food going, right? So it was like, hey, this is the pathway really with the Miller Farms is human and pet food, right? Human food we distribute still. It's still a multi-million-dollar business where we do like private schools, like your Choates of the world and all of those, and we do custom cuts of poultry, and we still do that. However, at the time, that was still the case. The pet food brand was growing, and we had this, at the time, giant 40-plus truck transportation company. They sold that in order to generate the cash to keep the food businesses going. Now, hindsight 2020, looking at that, what that did was destroyed the brand's opportunity to then become its own distribution company along with a manufacturing company. There's a company in Canada that dominates the market called Big Country Raw, and they saw this happening in Canada at a similar time where they said, if we can control the distribution of the product and the manufacturing of the product, we will dominate. And they do in Canada. And that was like a something that destroyed the growth of the brand if they didn't have to, during those tough times, sell the transportation business, because then what that would have turned into is all of our retailers, right? You could go direct with retailers, which they do in Canada, the big chains, because they control the supply chain and distribution of that product to them. They also control all their 3PL stocking and locations, and it brings not only your cost way down, but then you can also generate an extra stream of income off of it. So that was that hurt Oma's potential back in those days, like 15 years ago, and becoming also a trucking, transportation, and distribution company. And now you have the like PFX, Pet Food Experts now. They have a couple warehouses around, but that's essentially all they are. And they just acquired Pet Supply, and now they're, I think they are $450 million company, and all they do is transport pet food. So that was like a growth potential that the company could have been on if they didn't have to sell it in order to allocate funds to keep the food going.
So they sold it during a recession.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. To Datco.
It wasn't like
Datco bought them. You ever heard of Datco?
Nope.
Yeah.
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 You've heard of Datco? They're big in like New England, East Coast.
I didn't know, so I obviously knew the Miller Farms part.
Yeah.
I never knew the transportation.
Yeah,
piece.
called Miller's
There's another
Transportation.
thing. Do you think it had partially to do with just too much going on and too many decisions around?
Probably,
That's
but
very different
But
things.
before that, they were both like apparently doing well from what I've heard. It was just after those times they had to generate cash.
Sometimes people go against, even though it leads them down the path of the vertical integration and how it makes sense. Sometimes they're like, no, we need to focus on our core competencies, and that's the food. That's interesting.
Yeah.
That would have
Yeah. It would have been
owning
crazy.
distribution.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I think those are all great stories. I mean, they're very unique stories. We had a Mandela effect. We had some other ones that came into place. Good stories. He didn't even pay attention. Do you know what a Mandela effect is?
Mandela effect?
Yeah.
No.
Oh, okay. That's why he's not reacting to it.
He's like, yeah,
You
whatever.
never heard of that? All the trends
He's like,
right
sounds
now?
made up like my story.
weren't we all together talking about this?
He apparently doesn't know what a Mandela effect is. Mandela effect is when there was something that you remembered and you thought was the way it worked, but then you find out later on that it was completely wrong.
Like Shaq was in that movie where he was
Shazam.
Shazam.
Yeah.
Was he not
Great
in a movie?
movie.
No.
Wait, he wasn't?
Shaquille O'Neal?
No, he wasn't, right?
Oh, I don't know. I have no idea. I've
Or
heard this.
he was in that one. That's the real one?
Yeah.
I don't know.
What's the one that everyone else thinks?
Well, there's also this whole like drama stuff around people are going back and finding old tapes and seeing that things have happened. And then they've been
Russell, or the workout guy.
Russell Simmons?
Yeah, that he never wore a
band?
a band.
Yeah, I know.
He's never worn a band,
That's I think that because all the kids come with a band.
but he's never worn one.
Who knows? All right. With that all, do you understand what Mandela effect is now? Yeah. Okay, cool. That's what we're saying, that your story was a Mandela effect because none of us remember what the hell Quickster was.
Oh, so Shaq was Shazam. There was Sinbad. Everybody
Sinbad.
thinks Sinbad was in one too, and he wasn't.
Oh, interesting. All right.
Sean.
As we think about the biggest mistakes, right? Like, let's talk about this. Like, you guys are seeing this market. I'm hearing about people terminating. I'm hearing about people terminating and pulling back and doing all sorts of things. What are the biggest mistakes you're seeing business owners make right now when it comes to getting times are tough, and what are they avoiding right now? Like, what do you guys think? Mary, you seem like you got something.
No, it's a hard question. Actually, I'm trying to process it because a lot of businesses that we talk to and owners that I've spoken with, they're being pressed with different challenges. That's a tough question.
Well, I think yeah, I'll kind of kick it off while you guys are thinking about it. I think there's a couple things that I've seen in this market, and maybe it's just the way that I kind of think about stuff. But one, I think there's a little bit too much of a knee-jerk reaction in an emotional way, right? They're not thinking logically; they're thinking at an emotional level. They're knee-jerking reaction to what's going on up and down, whatever may be the market crashes, and they're making decisions around personnel or marketing or business decisions,
Pricing.
and they're too dramatic. When you should be at a position, and this comes down to back to like good business resilience, right? If you have a good business, you should have enough cash flow and enough of a war chest sitting around where you're not having to put a business decision that moment in order to protect and save yourself. If you're making decisions at that exact moment, there's probably a bigger problem within your business.
Yeah.
I think the second thing that I think people are doing is they're reacting to things too quickly. You can't react to things within a day or two. I think there are things you have to react to, but there's a lot of things that are a little bit up in the air. Like the whole, we'll talk about it in a future pod here, but like the tariff checkouts, for example.
That was the example.
That's a perfect example of a knee-jerk reaction of people hurting themselves for no good reason.
But the wild thing is, like, I made a post about it that I ended up deleting the post because I offended some of our actual vendors with it. Like it was a very polarizing thing. People are like, no, you need to do that to fund the future product. And it's like, do you? Because I don't think you should charge a tariff on something you didn't pay a tariff on.
Yeah.
Everybody, and we've talked about this. You checked when the tariffs first happened. You checked on Brian and I, and obviously it doesn't affect Brian as much, but there's possible effect. And I told you. We're in wait and watch.
Yeah, it's wait and watch, right?
The quick reactions are such a bad move.
People are so dramatic about these decisions when you got to give it time.
Yeah.
I'm not seeing quick reaction to people that I speak with. I think the question that comes up a lot, and you're actually maybe a great person to ask, is they're planning and trying to figure out 3, 6, 9 months in advance.
Sure.
And the question is do I keep doing what I've been doing and deal, let's say in this case, with a tariff, or do I wait longer? So it's actually not a knee-jerk reaction. It's like they're actually maybe even postponing to see what's going to happen. But then it also, from a planning velocity standpoint, it can impact their business on the back end. So I think a lot of people that we're talking with, they're trying to be strategic around this, but what no one knows at this point is like what is going to happen or how is it going to play out?
I mean, I think there's a strategic piece.
But that's the whole thing, right? Like you can't have a reaction to something you're unknown. You have to prepare and have, like what John said, you have to have different routes based on what's going to happen, but not to make action and go too quick at the same time because you're doing. We saw this happen in COVID, like in 2020, in March 2020. People went crazy. They fired a bunch of people. Remember that? And then they had to revert, which is what caused the great. Was it not recession, but the great.
What was the word? What did they call it?
I called it whatever when people are migrating from job to job like crazy.
Yeah.
Remember that? Because all of a sudden everyone was hiring like crazy because everyone laid off everybody in the freaking world because of 1 month. It was 30 days. If we go back in history, there was a 30-day period in 2020 where everything dropped. The stock market dropped, and then we ripped, right? But for those 30 days, everyone went into extreme knee-jerk reaction. And they panicked.
It was what, March or April?
It was March of 2020.
Yeah.
And then by April 2020, everyone was trying to hire the world back and making terrible mistakes the other way, right? We are literally in that cycle still right now, and people are making the same mistake that we should have learned in 2020. If you would have just chilled out for just a month and you had enough reserve and enough capital to know that you were okay because you're running a good business, it wouldn't have been a problem. But if you were in a position where your business was going to die because of a month of floating just to see what would happen, then your business probably is in a tougher spot.
Yeah, clowns don't learn.
Clowns don't learn. That's a good way to look at it. So they go to clown school. They do. All right.
Yeah. But they learn how to be a clown.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right? Last round before we get to Amara's book corner. He's been itching over there to talk about.
I'm
his
excited
book.
about
He's,
that.
Yeah,
He's
he
held
has
the
been.
book for 3 episodes straight, just ready
Yeah,
to talk
no,
about
he has
it.
been.
And last night I think he slept with it. So let's do a
I
quick
actually
round.
did.
That's awkward, bro. All right,
Opens
let's
it up.
do a quick round. What's the one thing? Like, let's give brands, businesses, one strategy to remain resilient in a downturn. Just one. We don't need to go crazy about it. Who's got one they want to start off with?
Yeah, I think I'll start. I think to get ready for a possible downturn, which we know comes every 10 to 15 years, is once your goal should be to build the biggest community and loyal following that you possibly can. Because if all you're doing is trying to sell product, that you're in a more susceptible position to fail during those economic downturns, no matter if you're a vitamin or a drug. But if you are a part of your consumers' lives and you treat your brand and product like it is a necessity and like they need it, you're in a much better position than someone that is just purchasing a product for the product, if that makes sense. So try to build that loyal following and then community ultimately, which we talk about a lot.
Lean into your community. Lean into your current customers.
Lean into it big time. Because a lot of times we also make decisions based off of what we see from others around or people we see on social media. But the ultimate person that matters the most and the only one that should matter is your customer. So if your customer's not having a knee-jerk reaction, you shouldn't either.
That's a good one.
Yeah, that's really good.
John, what do you got?
I'll take a book out of just BattleBox and how we preach being prepared in general. I think being prepared here is diversification, and it's diversification of anything and everything, from how you're sourcing your product to how you're sourcing your customers. I think just diversifying as much as stuff possible on all ends of the business so that there's not these single choke points that can destroy you. Yeah. A single choke point with all the tariff stuff was, okay, you manufacture in China, well, you're screwed then. If you're 100% dependent on acquiring customers on Meta and Meta's CPMs and CACs keep going up, like, you're dead. Mm-hmm. Just diversification everywhere. Diversification on your team.
Yep.
Like making sure people are cross-trained and people know how to do everyone's job in case that you have to pull the emergency sheet out and say, okay, we need to make layoffs.
Yeah. What about you, Amir?
I think brands, agencies too, I think we undervalue the good ones, the value we bring to our customers, to kind of similar to what Brian was saying. So I think when companies see turbulence, when there's maybe uncertainty in the future and they don't know how to handle it, I think the important thing is to remember your community that you built, hopefully, the people that you know, they don't want you to fail. They don't want you not to exist tomorrow because you provided a certain value to them. And I think when you're going through a rough time, especially if you're a smaller brand, I think people are cheering for you, even though you don't see it every day. And I think if you lean the community into let me know, look, we're dealing with tariffs. We're trying to find different ways. Just letting you know we're working hard for you. Like, have those conversations. I think you did a great job actually not too long ago when there was a bird flu outbreak.
Yeah.
You guys went and started.
You did a video about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Communicate proactively. I think that consumers really appreciate it. I feel if I had a really big problem, let's say, God forbid, like I was talking about May of next year, I struggle. If I come to John, if I come to Brian, to a bunch of our clients and say, hey, we're in a bad spot. Can you guys make referrals? Can you guys do this? I think they see enough value in us where they want to keep us around and help us get through that as well. And I think just being honest and sharing, not taking advantage of it, but just kind of like dig into that loyalty, that brand that you built. And I think people will help you more than you think.
Interesting. My advice is a little bit more on the other side of things. I would say is like, go renegotiate everything. Now is the time to go renegotiate your SaaS bills, your shipping bills, your product bills, your vendor bills. Like, go back and just negotiate. Even if you've already negotiated this year, just look at all your costs and figure out how to save money, right? Like, a couple points is all you really need to save, and try to find ways to optimize around your revenue and bills. And then really it comes down to marketing. And it's like, this is the time to lean into the channels that cost you the least amount of money, right? Emails, for example, right? Great channel. Maybe you haven't been putting the energy and time in. It happens like clockwork. And I'm the email guy, so like I'm always going to say this, but like most brands don't optimize their emails for actually what they should be doing with them. They're just doing what they need to be doing with them. And this is the time you should be going to optimize it, because it's a channel that creates real ROI. And people don't spend a lot of time there. So like saving bills, optimizing channels. And then of course, I do think it's important. Like John said, he had a plan. I love that, is like, you should always have a plan B, C, D, E, right? Like you should always have different plans in motion, but you should also be able to and be willing to have the most hardest exercise, which is like seeing what happens if everything cuts in half or whatever it might be. You've got to have those plans, and you got to be willing to rip that cord if you're heading that way, but not just too early, right?
Can I add something to that? Because
why not?
I watched the panel, and I'm just curious how you guys are going to react to this. There was a speaker, and there's a panel around tariffs, and I was at a conference, and he came out and said, not what you're saying, which I 100% agree on. He came out and said he was an investment, something, whatever, venture capitalist. He said, just delay paying your vendors by 3 to 4 months.
No.
What a clown.
Like, I got with TikTok. Like, now, I tell everyone, and you and I had this conversation, Brian, you know this better than anyone. If somebody needs time to pay something, just let me know when it's going to be, so I can plan financially. Because
we've had to say, reach out to
Yeah,
vendors.
but you're that's part of negotiation.
Get
Ask for
until next
terms.
month.
that's different. But like to say I'm going to ignore that bill from a vendor and just ignore it for 2 to 3 months as long as you can, it's the most irresponsible thing you can do to somebody you consider quote unquote a partner.
That's so.
Well, you ruin the
you said
relationship.
this was a
Also.
VC guy?
When you need help again, they're not going to help.
They're going to remember this.
I was livid. I was like, I get people need time.
Did no one call him out?
Nobody on the panel. No, there was like 6 people. If I was up there, I'd have been, you're flipping insane.
I kind of wish I
You
would have
should have
gone
stood
there.
up and did it anyways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You should have been mad about it.
Like
I am a
seriously.
man, but yeah. It was.
I'm mad right now.
Yeah. No.
No, I didn't say mad. I said be a man about it.
Yeah, I said I am a man.
This was at Charge X?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, we're trying to keep that.
He didn't say it, but we knew.
No, I mean, I don't want to get into details.
right.
Whatever.
Just
I don't
say
know.
the guy's name, Roy.
Honestly,
All right.
What's the
like,
guy's name?
Amir, we've got a few minutes here, and this week, the book that you've been holding and sleeping with for the last 3 days, we'd love you to talk to us about it.
Ooh.
Tell us about it, give us a little synopsis, and give us a rating.
Yeah, the hard thing about hard things. It is written actually by a person, Ben Horowitz, that I knew about high level. But
Smart dude.
Super smart. I mean, smart to a level. I was like, why is this guy not, in a good way, glorified more on the business acumen that he has? So to kind of give you guys a rundown. So he applied to this company when he was younger, right out of college, Silicon Chips or something like that. It was a new tech company, and Mark Anderson was part of it. And one of the requirements they had is you had to be a Harvard or a MIT or a whatever, one of those Ivy School grad in order to get a job there. So he knocked on a couple doors, asked for an introduction, and basically there was no cell phones at that time. He was driving home or coming home, and his wife said, hey, the recruiter just called and said, you have this interview, but please don't get your hopes up because you don't meet the qualifications we're looking for. And what he told his wife, which was very fascinating, and I love the attitude, and it set, I think, the rest of his life up in his thinking. He said, that's the recruiter. That's not the hiring manager. I have a shot. And the next, what he ended up doing, he ended up going into a meeting with one of the co-founders, Clicked, and what he did, he obsessed about technology at that time. We're talking about internet and connectivity of people, and he obsessed to a point where he became somewhat of an expert, which at that time was very hard to find. And even though he had no previous experience, I believe they made him a product manager at that company. Then Mark Anderson and went and formed a company with a company out of Illinois called Mosaic from the University of Illinois. They created the first interface for browsers, basically. So Mosaic and Netscape came together. He went there, ran that company with or Netscape with Mark Anderson, and what ended up happening, they got acquired a few years later by AOL, and he became the VP of AOL's e-commerce product. The problem is AOL's CEO at that time, I forgot his name, but he was a media guy.
What, that's Steve Case?
It wasn't Steve Case. It was somebody else.
This is after Steve Case.
It might have been, yeah. And what they've seen is AOL did not want to be a technology company. They wanted to be a media company, and that's what they focused on. And then they saw a huge opportunity with cloud technology. And they founded a company called LoudCloud. And LoudCloud, it's actually a phenomenal story. Is they started a company, and we're talking right before the 2000 depression, recession, or however you want to label it. Yeah, and what they ended up doing is they started to get customers like Ford, Nike, and all of those people, but they weren't getting enough revenue, and they were about to go bankrupt. Now, a bunch of people in the company at that time had stock options and things like that. And he went to the board meeting and said, basically, I don't know what to do. Do we go try to raise money? Do we try to go public? And basically, the board meeting is like, well, the only option right now in this downward spiral, because nobody's giving out money, we got to try to go public. Now, everyone at the company, when they announced it, because they were shareholders, they were thinking they're going to get $50, $100 a share. They had these like false hopes that everyone's going to be rich when they're not going out to IPO. The deal was, because of the economy and where they were at, the best they could get at that moment was $12 a share. So every single person in the company was devastated. They were like, what the hell? We're not going to make any money, whatever. Here's the worst part. Maybe, Jimmy, you know about this because of crossover as well, but they had to go on the road to convince people to invest into their IPO. It wasn't calls or anything like that. From the announcement of going to IPO to 3 weeks later going onto the road, while they were on the road, they were told economy went even worse. You guys need to downgrade from $12 to $6 a share. So they end up going public with $6 a share. And what ended up happening is the economy dwindled down, and their stock fell down to 35 cents a share. It was terrible for them. What they ended up doing, worked really hard through it and brought the company up at the highest peak at $14 a share, and they got acquired by HP for billions of dollars, and that's really what unlocked everything for them.
So this is really just about his story.
Yeah, it's about his story.
It's about his story, but he shares the hard things.
Yeah.
You know what I always talk about? People need to talk more about the hard things.
Yeah.
This is the...
Amara, there was a pod, I don't know if you heard it yet, but there was a pod we're talking about like these courses that are for sale. And Amara's like, I want to know about the hard part of the course. And we were trying to argue with him that no one would buy it. But Amara likes the hard stuff.
It also says...
hard course?
Like a hard, something being only
Yeah,
told
if someone
negative.
said how hard it was going to be,
Yeah.
no one would buy it.
Yeah.
So on the thing, and I obviously haven't read it, but he, as a lifelong rap fan, Horowitz amplifies business lessons with lyrics from his favorite
He does.
songs.
Love
Yeah,
that.
he does.
What?
that.
And he has,
Really?
yeah, it's beautiful. He has DMX in there, Nas,
Yeah.
everyone. And then he has like Peter Thiel segments in there
Yeah,
and
see?
a bunch of other people.
It's an interesting
phenomenal.
book.
Is there
No,
any
we
pictures
appreciate
or
this.
just
Amara,
text?
what do you give this a rating? Give me a rating.
Oh, I want to...
Hold on, no. Give me a rating.
10 out of 10.
A 10 out of 10.
Wow.
10 out of 10 with no
Yeah.
pictures?
If you...
With no pictures.
it is...
You gotta read it?
I never read it before because you put it in the agenda. I said, I need to find a book. There's a bunch of options. I ended up picking that. And when I started reading, I didn't want to put it down.
Really?
That's
Yeah,
great.
I'm not done with it yet.
I haven't read this book in a couple years. I feel like it's been years
I
since
haven't
I've
read it. So you read
I've
it?
audiobooked it, right?
Okay.
I like audiobooking stuff, but
Yeah.
pods have consumed me there. But no, that's great, and I think we should highly recommend it. We'll put it in the show notes and all that good stuff.
Can I
so
read it after you
we
get
can
done?
do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. Well, guys, thank you for checking out the book and recommending it. He gives it a 10 out of 10. I don't think he's given anything a 10 out of
No.
10. The closest thing that's ever come
Chicago.
was Hormozy and Chicago, I guess.
Yeah.
They were kind of tied together. So-
Can I just say one thing about the book? That's like really,
Yeah. I'm trying to limit time, so on purpose.
Okay, let's fire
and it's
up.
okay. We want the readers to go listen to read the book
Yeah.
themselves.
You haven't
and
even
discover
finished it
these
yet.
things. You haven't finished it, so you
phenomenal.
can't
Read a
give us
book
the
you haven't
ending.
even finished.
You don't know about the
It's
ending.
like, oh
do
yeah,
you?
the movie was great. It's like, oh, what happened at the end? It's
guy
like, I'm not
died.
sure. Yeah, it's like,
guy
"Why? I
died.
thought you said it was great. It's like, yeah, but I'm only halfway through.
The one fascinating thing, though, the reason I wanted to say it is, with everything that we spoke about, for everyone listening, is sometimes you have to choose between bad and worse.
Yeah, of course.
That's-
It's never as bad as it seems. That's what I tell people.
That's the only thing I want to get
Yeah.
out.
Love
All
it.
No,
right.
that's good.
Yeah, it's a good way. I
Yeah.
mean, that's the same thing. Like, I always say this to people, like, it's never as bad as it seems. And that's just simply, even at the worst point, it'll get better. Like, it'll
Yeah.
be fine. All right. With that, that's a wrap, guys. I think we go into a lot of stuff around e-commerce, resilience, economic downturn, strategies. I think we talked a lot of different things. Good stories,
Yep.
good case studies that we've learned, a little bit in Mandela effect that we've learned also, but a great book recommendation too. Like, comment, subscribe, tell a friend, and let us know what you think about the pod. And don't forget to subscribe to awesomepod.com to be alerted to join our newsletter. With that being said, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you on the next pod.
Welcome to the Awesome Pod, where we talked a lot. E-com was the path that we walked a lot. But now the question is, will you subscribe or not? Ha!